Africa has been hit hard by coronavirus pandemic, it may not have as many infections as other continents, but the economic impact has been great. But why does a continent with so many natural resources struggle to so much financially? Africa should be a major player on the world stage, but is held back by bad leadership, corruption, and a lack of responsibility for development. So what can be done to ensure countries capitalize on their potential and lift citizens out of poverty and into employment?
Well, to discuss this, we're joined by JAKKIE CILLIERS, the founder of the Institute for Security Studies and the author of an upcoming book, Africa First, which explores these challenges. Good to see you, JAKKIE. Well, I was just looking up on your book and I see that it has 5 stars. That's quite impressive. Africa First, tell us exactly what the book is all about. What does it address?
Thanks very much. So what Africa First tries to do is we look long term at where Africa has come from and where it is headed. And, you know, the central problem with Africa, as you've said, is that the gap between Africa, for example, GDP per capita in Africa and the rest of the world is steadily increasing over time. So in Africa First, I model 11 different scenarios or transitions to see what can be done to start closing the gap. So we look at the impact of getting more rapidly to Africa's demographic dividend, an agricultural revolution, going up the industrial curve, manufacturing, more peace and better governance, and so on and so forth. These are structural trends. In your introductory, you made the remark that, you know, we are held back by corruption and poor leadership. That is true, but it is only part of the truth. For example, a country like Nigeria, I'll mention one thing which is quite controversial. You have such a young population that you find it difficult to educate and to provide healthcare for your working age population. And the result of that is that Nigeria only gets to its demographic dividend in about 20, 30 years' time. So that, for example, is one of the issues that we have to address. But essentially, the continent has not developed, partly because of the huge health burden that we've had over decades and generations, and that we have to transition African economies to become more productive. And you only get that if you move your manpower, your woman power, your labor from low productivity areas like subsistence agriculture into something like manufacturing or high-end services, and that is not happening. What is happening in Africa is that labor is moving from subsistence agriculture in many areas to low-end services in informal areas in cities, and that's not productivity enhancing. So changing all of this takes time. It takes interventions on every dimension of Africa's development, on education, on health, on industrialization, on better governance, and so on. So there's no magic solution. We need to focus on the fundamentals, and slowly but surely Africa's time will come.
I was just wondering, as you were speaking, I was considering the fact that some people say that in Africa, a big part of our problem is lack of infrastructure. They talk about power, they talk about other road network for those who are farming and things like that. And on the other side, they said, if only we will educate all our youths, they will become the workforce that will be the envy of the world. Where do you think the balance should go? Which way should it be tilted?
You know, investment in human capital, in people, is at the end of the day the best investment that you can make. So education, providing sufficient food and healthcare really is what makes countries develop. And you can look at a country like Kenya, South Korea, for example, which has no natural resources, but has, because of the investment in its human capital, has developed. Infrastructure is often held up to be a magic bullet that will solve things, but it depends very much on what infrastructure you are speaking about. Very often in Africa, we think of big infrastructure projects, But we've done studies on a number of African countries, and very often the kind of infrastructure that you need is not railroad and bridges and harbors, but in actual fact, the provision of basic health care. So it's water and sanitation, particularly in cities, because that means that you feed your human capital. You make your human capital, and that is our major advantage. The main thing that Africa has is we have lots of people. What we should be doing is making sure they are well educated and well fed, and that over time will change all of Africa. But that is a slow investment. There is no building infrastructure, for example, in itself will not solve Africa's problems. We have to advance on every dimension of the backlog that we have, and infrastructure is just one of those. A much bigger problem is, for example, the fact that our educational levels, both the level of education and the quality of education in Africa, is so far behind those of averages in the rest of the world.
Then can Africa really deliver on its potential? Yes, you've said so much about economy, education, and all of that. Then you have security, tearing at the very soul, at the very heart of the African continent. Without security, of course, there's not much you can achieve. How can Africa get its day? Because you just said that Africa will get her day soon.
There are a number of, so in Africa First, there are 11 scenarios that we model, ranging from demographics to peace, governance, manufacturing, and so on and so forth. 3 of those areas are like levers that turn everything else. One of them is demographics, a second one is peace and security or more stability, and a third one is the quality of governance. But these things go hand in hand. Africa is unstable largely because our governments do not have enough capacity to be able to ensure security, and governments don't have enough capacity because we don't have a large enough tax and revenue base. So you only get that when you grow and when your economy becomes more stronger. So if you look at a map of the world.
Thank you, Jackie. I want to say thank you very much. That's about as much as we can take. Jackie Cilliers, author of Africa First.